Why are soccer balls made of hexagons? If you're curious to find out, make sure to like this video, subscribe for more fascinating stories, and let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Once upon a time, soccer balls, or footballs, depending on where you hail from, were made using inflated pig bladders that were wrapped in leather. The ancient Chinese game Cuju was an early form of soccer too, though players used a ball stuffed with feathers. In medieval England, players even used leather-covered wine bottles filled with cork shavings to make them easily retrievable if they fell in the river. But it wasn't until 1844 that the modern-day soccer ball as we really know it started taking shape, and that's because that is the year when inventor Charles Goodyear patented vulcanized rubber. The evolution of soccer balls in history. In 1855, Goodyear created the first rubber soccer ball after establishing the patent on vulcanized rubber a decade earlier. Then, 7 years later, H.J. Linden developed an inflatable rubber bladder to make the ball easier to kick while still maintaining its pseudo-spherical shape. So, white soccer balls actually became the standard way back in 1951. Companies started whitewashing the leather, and then in the 1960s they began using synthetic materials. This helped get a more uniform thickness and kept the balls from becoming misshapen over time. If teams played winter matches, official orange soccer balls were manufactured, just to make them easier to see out there on the field. Why are soccer balls black and white? Well, let's dive into that question. But the ball most commonly seen today, the one with black and white pentagons and hexagons, gained popularity in the 1960s. Previously, leather soccer balls consisted of 18 sections stitched together, 6 panels of 3 strips apiece. This design stitched together 20 hexagons with 12 pentagons for a total of 32 panels. The ball made its World Cup debut as Adidas's Telstar in 1970 in Mexico. The ball's pattern of white hexagons with black pentagons made it easily visible on television. As a bonus for players, the black pentagons helped them learn to curve the ball better by being able to track its movement more easily. Adidas kept the ball's black and white color scheme until 2002, but the 32-panel buckyball might not stay in vogue much longer. Adidas launched its new generation of soccer balls for the 2006 and 2010 World Cups with the Teamgeist, which had 14 panels, and the Jabulani, which had 8 panels designs respectively. Why are fruity drinks called ADs? Lemonade, limeade, Gatorade, even Kool-Aid despite its spelling. Thanks to these and other beverages, we recognize aid as shorthand for fruit-flavored drink. But actually, the suffix itself has nothing to do with fruit or drinks. If you're enjoying this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with your friends. What's in an aid? Sources generally credit lemonade as the beverage behind the trend. The term, which came from the French lemonade, was in print by the mid-17th century. "Captain, make some lemonade," one character says in Thomas Killigrew's play, The Parson's Wedding. First performed around 1640 and published in 1664. Lemonado, a variant based on the Spanish limonada, also cropped up in 17th century English plays. The suffix, "ad," and other versions like Spanish's ade or o and Italian's ata or o, derive from the Latin past participle endings, ata, which is feminine, and atus, which is masculine. They serve too many purposes to summarize in one definition, but sometimes they denote the product of an action. A frittata, for example, is something fried. Frito is Italian for fried. They can also more loosely refer to something that features whatever the root word is. That's the case with lemonade, which basically just means something involving lemons. Nouns like these often take on more specific meanings than their word parts suggest. A frittata isn't just anything fried. It's an egg-based dish, and plenty of people bake it rather than fry it, honestly. And lemonade isn't just anything involving lemons. It's a beverage made with lemon juice, sugar, and water. In short, there's nothing drink-specific about aid. It's a testament to lemonade's success that people co-opted the suffix for other sweetened fruit drinks. Europeans embraced lemonade in full force during the 17th century, though Egyptians had enjoyed lemon-based beverages centuries earlier, and it didn't take long for the first aid offshoot to appear. Orangeade, also known as orangeade, hit print in 1672. By the late 19th century, raspberryade, cherryade, and limeade had joined it. How Gatorade, Lucozade, and Kool-Aid got their names. In the 20th century, the convention went commercial, the British energy drink. Lucozade is named after glucose, the simple sugar it contains. Its original name reportedly was glucosade, though it's not clear exactly when it was changed, certainly by the mid-1930s when the product landed in newspaper ads. When doctors and nurses are fighting to restore an exhausted patient to health, they put him on Lucozade, a tonic drink rich in, pure medicinal glucose. For glucose is energy, one 1939 advertisement said. Kool-Aid started out with a different name too, Kool-Aid, trademarked by Nebraska-based inventor Edwin Perkins in 1928. As the story goes, Perkins changed the spelling either due to pressure from a competitor, or because officials took issue with aid being used for a product that didn't contain fruit juice. The truth is foggy, but it's worth noting that the FDA did regulate the label during this era. In the mid-1930s, shipments of Cold Aid, a line of fruity drinks from Brooklyn's Drew Corporation, were confiscated for alleged misbranding. The drink labels, as a Pennsylvania district court put it, tended to deceive and mislead the purchaser when applied to products that contained artificial color and little or no fruit juice. Ironically, Gatorade chose Aid to avoid the FDA's rules for using Aid. We were told that you couldn't use Aid because the FDA prohibited that, Gatorade co-creator Dana L. Shires Jr. said in a 2001 interview. That would classify it as something other than a cola or soft drink, so we changed it to Aid. Gator is a nod to the Florida Gators, the University of Florida football team that Gatorade was invented for in the 1960s. These days, the FDA has strict requirements for calling products juice, but nothing in particular for Aid. The term is only mentioned as one of many items made from fresh fruits and fruit juices or processed fruits and fruit juices. And despite its strong association with beverages, Aid isn't exclusive to them. Take Urinal Aid, a deodorizing drain cover that refreshes in a different way. Why do gas stations charge for air? Homes, cars, and groceries may be vastly more expensive than they were just a few years ago, but air remains our best free and abundant resource. Unless you're in space or underwater, naturally. Yet thousands of gas stations around the country have found a way to monetize it, charging customers anywhere from 25 cents to several dollars to use a compressed air machine to inflate their tires. If you want to discover more surprising truths about everyday topics, don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell for more. Can they really charge for air? In most cases, yes. In others, they might be breaking the law. Under pressure. Most gas stations feature a kiosk near the pumps with a compressed air nozzle that can inflate tires that have fallen below the pounds per square inch, or PSI threshold recommended by automobile manufacturers. That number can often be found on a label located inside the car's door jamb. Dropping a few quarters in the machine kicks on the compressor and gives customers a few minutes to fill up. The value of this service is somewhat subjective. While air is free, the delivery method to get it pumped into your tires could be construed as something worth paying for. And there is cost associated with running a compressor, which requires electricity, but many gas station owners cite a different reason for putting a premium on their air. They're trying to avoid people making use of the business's resources without paying for gas or other products. We aren't making a huge profit from it, one gas station proprietor told the Press Democrat back in 2013, but we don't want people just taking the air all the time without buying gas. Back when full-service gas stations were the norm in the early part of the 20th century, checking tire pressure was just part of what the attendant did for you. Over time, though, as self-service stations became more popular, that little freebie started to disappear. By the 1970s, charging for air had become so common that the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration actually spoke up about it. They argued that making folks pay for tire inflation could discourage them from keeping their tires properly inflated, which, could lead to more accidents. Depending on where you live, you might not actually have to pay for air. But, honestly, some service stations might be keeping that fact a bit of a secret. So, here's the thing. Back in 1999, California passed a law saying gas stations had to offer free air and water to customers, as long as they were also buying gasoline. But the law didn't exactly make headlines, and a lot of stations just kept charging for air anyway. Some did put up signs to let customers know about their rights, but yeah, the lettering could be pretty tiny and easy to miss. Sometimes it actually takes a customer asking for free air to get it. The compressors usually have a bypass, either on the machine itself or inside the station, that lets you activate it without dropping in quarters. Connecticut has a similar law, but there, you don't have to buy fuel to get free air. Other states, though, may or may not have any rules to protect you from getting charged for air. Sometimes getting free air for your tires really depends more on where you go than what state you're in. For example, chains like Discount Tire and Firestone will check your tire pressure and add air for free, no strings attached. And convenience stores like Wawa and Sheetz, they make it a point to offer free air at all of their locations. If you're not sure where to find free air nearby, you can always use a locator like freeairpump.com to help you out. Of course, if you'd rather not rely on public pumps, which, let's face it, can sometimes be in rough shape, you could just keep a portable compressor in your trunk, just in case. Why is Jack a nickname for John? Narrator. If you're enjoying this, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your favorite nickname stories in the comments below. A nickname generally ticks at least one of two boxes. It's shorter than the full name, like Beth for Elizabeth, or it feels more familiar and less formal than the full name, like Charlie for Charles. And even if the nickname has been altered considerably from its origin, say Teddy for Theodore, there's often enough letter overlap for you to get how it happened. None of that is true of Jack as a nickname for John. Despite sharing a first letter, they seem like completely unrelated names. What gives? The Jacques theory. One old theory suggests that they are completely unrelated names. Since Jack sounds a lot like Jacques, the French version of James, some scholars have assumed that it must have come from Jacques. In that case, English speakers must have shifted the nickname from James to John, but there isn't much evidence to support this theory. Records of medieval Jameses who went by Jack are scarce compared to Johns who went by Jack. Moreover, it doesn't explain how English speakers came to ascribe the nickname to the wrong name. The more widely accepted theory suggests that Jack did begin as a nickname for John, and well, it's simply missing some letters that make the connection more obvious. The exact etymological trail is up for debate. EWB. Nicholson identified one possible path in his 1892 book, The Pedigree of Jack and of Various Allied Names. The Latin name Johannes evolved into Jan, to which people added the diminutive suffix, kin for the nickname Jonkin. The first N sound got dropped and people abbreviated the new version Jackin to Jack. There's support for this path in an early 15th century book that, while discussing the Anglo-Saxon habit of dropping sounds in names, mentions Jankin and Jackie as variants of Johanna. Another path puts more emphasis on KE, a Middle Dutch version of kin. According to the Oxford English Dictionary, Middle Dutch speakers added that diminutive to Jan for the nickname Janky, which, similar to Nicholson's theory, eventually became Jack via loss of the N sound. All the spelling variation makes it tough to confirm a tidy linear evolution. Historical references to Jankin and Janky, not to mention many other iterations, suggest that both diminutives played some part in the journey from John to Jack. But it doesn't seem like Jacques was involved.